She stood alone in the dark. A brass key trembled in her palm. Heavy, cold, older than she was. Elena Martinez was 38 years old, a waitress at a roadside diner, a single mother raising twin girls on tips and prayers. And to the rest of her family, she was the joke. 2 weeks ago, her older brother and sister sat across from her in a lawyer's office and laughed in her face. Take the 25,000, Elena. Sell the rusty gas station. Walk away while you still can. You were never going to amount to anything anyway. She almost did. She almost signed the papers. She almost let them win. But her father had left her one more thing, a small brass key and a folded note that read only this: some doors are hidden in plain sight. Look with your heart, mija, not just your eyes. Tonight she found the door, behind a filing cabinet, under a dusty office floor she had swept 100 times as a little girl, and what lay beyond it would change everything. A $200 million secret, a truth about her father she never imagined, and a betrayal so deep it would shake her family to its very foundation. Her hand reached for the lock. The key slid in. She turned it slowly, and the door swung open. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and old grease. It always did at 5 a.m. Elena Martinez tied her apron behind her back and tried not to look at her shoes. Because if she looked at her shoes, she would notice the duct tape again. And if she noticed the duct tape, she would have to admit that her left sole was peeling away from the leather. And she didn't have time for that today. She didn't have time for anything anymore. Elena Table 4 wants more cream. On it. Elena Table 7 needs a refill. Coming. Elena, the milk in the back is sour again. You'll have to run to the store on your break. She nodded, smiled, kept moving. Because that's what waitresses do. They keep moving. They keep smiling. They keep pretending their feet don't hurt and their backs don't ache and their hearts aren't quietly breaking somewhere inside their chest. Her father had been dead for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And she hadn't cried once. Not really. Not the kind of cry that fixes anything. Just little leaks at red lights and grocery store checkouts. And once embarrassingly, when she heard his favorite old song playing in the dental office, where she'd taken Camilla for a filling she couldn't afford. The bell above the diner door jingled. A family of 4. 2 kids, tourists probably. The dad already on his phone, the mom already exhausted at 6 in the morning. Elena recognized that look. She wore it every day. Welcome to Sonny's, she said, smiling. Booth or table? The mom didn't answer. The dad waved her off without looking up. Elena seated them anyway. Brought them menus, brought them water, brought them coffee, took their order, smiled and smiled and smiled until her face felt like cracked glass, because that was the job. Smile, refill, smile, refill. Don't think about your dead father. Don't think about the rent due in 9 days. Don't think about your daughter's school calling you yesterday. Don't think, just refill. The phone in her pocket buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. She ignored it again. The third time she pulled it out, hands shaking just a little. Because the third time meant something was wrong. The third time always meant something was wrong. Lincoln Heights Middle School. She closed her eyes. Hello, Mrs. Martinez, this is Principal Brooks at Lincoln Heights. Miss, she corrected automatically. Miss Martinez. Right. My apologies. Miss Martinez. I'm calling about Camilla. Her heart did the thing it always did now. That little drop, that little flutter, that little, is she hurt? Is she okay? Is she alive? That single mothers know intimately. Is she okay? Physically, yes, but there was an incident in the cafeteria this morning. What kind of incident? Camilla used some colorful language with another student. We're going to need you to come in. Elena turned her back to the counter, lowered her voice. Mr. Brooks, I'm at work. Can this wait until tomorrow? Miss Martinez, this is the 3rd time this month. She knew that. She knew that. She knew that. But knowing it didn't change the fact that her manager was already glaring at her from across the counter. that she was already 2 hours into a double shift she couldn't afford to leave, that she'd already used up every favor she had with every coworker in this place. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. She hung up, untied her apron, walked over to Manny. "I have to go. Elena, it's my daughter. Elena, it's her school. This is the third time this month." There it was again. Third time this month. Like a song everyone wanted to sing about her life. "I'll work a double tomorrow," she said. "I'll cover Tuesday for Rita. I'll do whatever you need." Manny sighed, pinched the bridge of his nose, looked at her with the kind of pity that Elena had learned to hate more than outright cruelty. "Go," he said. "But Elena." "I know. You can't keep doing this." "I know." She walked out, got in her car. A 15-year-old sedan with a passenger door that opened maybe 60% of the time, and a check engine light that had been on for so long she'd named it. She called it Henry. Don't ask why. The radio didn't work. The air conditioning didn't work. But the engine started. Most days that was enough. She pulled out of the parking lot and let herself breathe for the first time in 3 hours. The school was on the other side of town, 20 minutes if the lights cooperated, 30 if they didn't. She used the time the way she always used time alone now. She thought about her father, Antonio Martinez, born in a country he loved, buried in one he chose. 68 years old, 6 weeks gone. The cancer had moved fast. That's what everyone said. Fast like a wildfire. Fast like a sentence ending mid-word. One Tuesday in March, he was complaining about back pain. The next Tuesday, he was in the hospital. The Tuesday after that, the doctor said 3 months. The Tuesday after that, he was gone. It was always a Tuesday with him. Even his death. Elena's eyes burned. She blinked it back. Because crying while driving was a luxury she couldn't afford. Because Camilla was waiting. Because Camilla always seemed to be waiting now with that small, angry chin lifted high, with those dark eyes that looked so much like her father's, it almost hurt to look at her. Both girls had Garrett's eyes. That was the cruelest joke of all. She pulled into the school parking lot, wiped her hands on her apron, realized she was still wearing her apron, pulled it off, stuffed it under the seat, got out. Principal Brooks was waiting in the office. So was Camilla. So was a woman Elena had never seen before in a beige cardigan that probably cost more than Elena's monthly grocery budget. And next to her, a small girl with pigtails and a smug little face Elena recognized immediately. Brielle. Of course it was Brielle. It was always Brielle. "Miss Martinez, please, sit." Elena sat. Camilla didn't look at her. Camilla was staring at the carpet like the carpet had personally betrayed her. "Camilla," Principal Brooks began, "would you like to tell your mother what you said today?" Camilla said nothing. Camilla. Nothing. The woman in the beige cardigan sniffed. Actually sniffed. Like the air in the principal's office had suddenly become too coarse for her sensitive nose. "My daughter," she said carefully, "was eating her lunch, minding her own business." Camilla's head snapped up. "That's not true." "Camilla." Elena reached for her hand. "She said it first, Mom, I swear." "Camilla, let the adults speak." The mother of Brielle smiled, a thin, tight smile, the kind of smile that said, "I have already won." Brielle was simply having a conversation about weekend plans, she continued. She mentioned that her family was going to the lake house. Your daughter then said, and I quote, well, I won't repeat what she said, but it involved Brielle's mother in a very inappropriate suggestion. Elena turned to Camilla. "What did she say to you first?" "She said," Camilla's chin was wobbling now, "she said my shoes were probably from a dumpster. She said you couldn't afford real ones." Brielle's eyes widened. "I did not. You did so." "I did not. You did so. You said it last week, too. You said..." "Girls!" Principal Brooks held up his hand. "That's enough." Elena looked at her daughter, at those eyes, at that quivering chin, at the way Camilla was clutching the chair like she might fall off it if she let go. 12 years old. Camilla was 12 years old, and she was already learning what it felt like to be ashamed of the woman who had given her life. Elena's chest cracked open in a way that did not show on her face. "Mr. Brooks," she said quietly, "may I speak to my daughter alone for a moment?" He hesitated, then nodded. Brielle and her mother were ushered out. The principal closed the door behind them. Elena turned to Camilla. "What did you say to her?" Camilla looked at her shoes. "I said her mom looked like a tired Barbie who'd given up on life." Elena pressed her lips together, hard, so she would not laugh. Because she was a responsible mother, and responsible mothers did not laugh at 12-year-olds who had inherited their grandfather's gift for cutting commentary. "Camilla, what? You can't say things like that. She started it. I know she started it. She always starts it. I know. Then why am I the one in trouble?" Elena took a breath, a long one, the kind of breath you take when you don't have an answer that makes sense to a 12-year-old, or maybe to anyone, the kind of breath grown-ups take 100 times a day, pretending the world is fair when they know perfectly well it isn't. "Because," she said softly, "you're the one who got caught." Camilla looked up. Her eyes were full. "That's not a real answer, Mom." "I know, baby. I know it isn't." The drive home was quiet. Camilla stared out the window. Elena stared at the road. Neither of them mentioned the lake house. Neither of them mentioned Brielle's mother. Neither of them mentioned the words that hung between them, unspoken but loud as church bells. "We can't afford real shoes." 6 weeks ago, she could have called her father. She could have. She would have. He would have picked up on the second ring. He would have listened without saying a word. And at the end, after she finished talking, he would have laughed his quiet laugh and said something like, "Mija, the shoes don't make the girl makes the shoes." And then she would have laughed too, and then she would have been okay. But there was nobody to call now. She pulled up to their apartment building, a two-bedroom on the third floor of a complex that smelled like microwave popcorn and old carpet. A complex where the elevator had been broken for 2 years, where the railing on the stairs shook when you held it, where the woman in 2B played telenovelas at full volume until 11 every night, and where Mrs. Halloran across the hall always smelled like cinnamon and watched the twins after school for whatever Elena could spare. Isabella was waiting on the front steps. She stood up when she saw them, brushed off the back of her jeans, walked over carefully like she was approaching a wounded animal. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad enough," Elena said. "How bad, bad? Third time this month, bad." Isabella looked at her sister. "Was it Brielle again?" Camilla said nothing. Isabella sighed, the kind of sigh that 12-year-olds shouldn't know how to do yet. "I told you to ignore her, Cam." "I tried." "You didn't try." "I tried for 3 minutes." "That's not trying." "It is when it's Brielle." Elena unlocked the front door. Inside the apartment was the same as always. Couch with the sagging cushion. Coffee table missing one corner from when Isabella had crashed into it learning to walk. Photograph of Elena's parents on the wall. Photograph of the twins as babies on the bookshelf. Photograph of her father teaching her to ride a bike when she was 6 on the fridge. She used to look at that fridge photo and smile. Now she walked past it without looking, because if she looked, she'd cry. And if she cried, she wouldn't stop. And if she didn't stop, the girls would see. And if the girls saw, they would be the ones taking care of her. And that wasn't how this was supposed to go. She set down her keys. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. She closed her eyes, just for a second. "Hello." "Elena, where have you been? I've been calling all morning." "I was at work, Adrian. Some of us have jobs that don't come with assistants to take our calls." He ignored that. He always ignored that. "Dad's lawyer just confirmed. The reading of the will is tomorrow at 2. Her hand tightened on the phone. "Tomorrow. 2 o'clock. Don't be late. Celeste and I have already taken care of everything else. The funeral, the headstone, the announcements in the paper. The least you can do is show up for this." The least you can do. There it was. The phrase he'd been using on her for 30 years. The least you can do. The least you can manage. The least, the least, the least. As if Elena's entire existence was a measurement of insufficiency. I have a shift tomorrow. Cancel it. Adrian, this is exactly why Dad worried about you. You never prioritize the right things. She could feel the heat rising in her chest, the familiar, useless heat. Because what was she going to do? Argue. Argue with Adrian, who had been winning every argument since 1991, who'd graduated top of his class, who lived in a house with a pool, and a wife who did Pilates, and two children who already had college funds in their names. Argue with that. I'll be there, she said. Good. 2 o'clock. Wear something appropriate. He hung up. She stood for a moment in the kitchen. Just stood, hands still wrapped around the phone, eyes fixed on the photograph of her father on the fridge. Wear something appropriate. Like she had a wardrobe of inappropriate things she might choose from. Like she might show up in pajamas. Like the only sister he had needed reminding how to dress for a funeral parlor's worth of grief. The girls were in their room. She could hear them. You'll get suspended next time, Isabella was saying. I won't. You will. Then maybe I'll stop having to go to that stupid school. Mom would lose her mind. Mom is already losing her mind. Elena flinched. It was true. They could see it. She pressed her palm against her forehead. Just for a second. Just until the tightness behind her eyes loosened enough to breathe. There was a knock at the door, a sharp 3-rap knock. The kind of knock that didn't ask if you were available. The kind of knock that announced its own arrival. Elena knew that knock. She opened the door. Celeste. Her sister stood in the hallway like the hallway was beneath her. A cream-colored suit, a handbag that probably cost as much as Elena's car. Sunglasses on her head even though it was cloudy out. Lipstick the color of expensive blood. Celeste? Elena. May I come in? She came in before Elena could answer. Walked past her, set down her bag on the wobbly coffee table. Looked around the apartment the way an inspector might look at a building she was about to condemn. Adrian said you were being difficult about tomorrow. I wasn't being difficult, Celeste. He said you tried to skip it. I didn't try to skip it. I work. That's what people do. They work. For a waitress's wage, Elena. Some of us don't have a choice. Some of us made choices that led there. Silence. The kind of silence Elena had grown up inside. The kind that knew where every bruise was and pressed gently on each one. Celeste sat down on the sagging couch, then immediately sat back up, as if she had remembered halfway down that the couch might be unclean. I came to give you a heads up, she said. About what? About the will. Elena crossed her arms. Celeste, the reading isn't until tomorrow. I know, but Adrian and I have been going through Dad's finances. How? With his attorney. His attorney works for him, Celeste. He's dead. His attorney is now the executor of his estate. And the executor of his estate is letting you two go through everything before the reading. Celeste did not answer that, which was an answer. Elena's jaw tightened. What did you find? Nothing good, Celeste said. Dad was struggling, Elena, worse than we thought. The gas station has been losing money for years. There are back taxes, outstanding loans. He owed people. He never said anything to me about that. He wouldn't, would he, not to you? There was something in Celeste's voice, a small, polished cruelty, a pebble tucked inside silk. What does that mean? It means he wanted to protect you. He always wanted to protect you. From everything. From your own choices. From your own life. Adrian and I were the ones he came to when he needed help. We were the ones who paid his property taxes the last 2 years. Elena went still. Excuse me. You didn't know. Of course you didn't. You paid his taxes. Adrian did. I helped. He was too proud to ask. We could see it. We didn't make him beg. The room tilted, just a little. Elena's father had never asked her for a dollar in his life. But maybe that was because he knew there were no dollars to ask for. Maybe that was because asking her for help would have been the same as asking the ocean for a glass of water. Maybe, maybe, maybe. But also maybe Celeste was lying. Because Celeste had been lying since she was 6 years old and told their mother that the broken vase was Elena's fault. Celeste had been lying since high school when she told her boyfriend that Elena had a crush on him just to watch what would happen. Celeste had been lying as a profession ever since she discovered that the truth was less efficient than fiction. "Why are you telling me this?" Elena said. "Because the estate is complicated." "How complicated?" "Adrian and I think it would be best if we handled everything." "I see. You have enough on your plate, Elena, with—" Celeste gestured around the apartment, around the chipped tile, around the photograph of Elena's father on the fridge. "With all this." Elena did not say a word, because if she said one word, she would say 100. And if she said 100, Celeste would smile that smile, the same smile she'd been smiling for 35 years, the smile that said, "You have proven my point." "Is that all you came to say, Celeste?" "I came to say I love you." "You did not come to say that." "I came to say we want to make this easy on you." "That is also not why you came." "Elena, you can leave now." Celeste blinked. She wasn't used to being told to leave. People did not tell Celeste to leave. People apologized to Celeste for taking up space in the room she had entered. She gathered her handbag. She did not look at Elena. She walked out the door without saying goodbye. Elena closed it, locked it, leaned her forehead against the wood, counted backwards from 20. She got to 14 before there was another knock. She closed her eyes. Of course there was another knock. Of course. Because the universe did not believe in mercy. The universe did not believe in pauses. The universe did not believe that a 38-year-old single mother of twins might need 10 consecutive minutes without someone arriving at her door to tell her exactly how she had failed at being alive. She opened the door. Garrett. Of course it was Garrett. He stood in the hallway in a suit he had not bought when they were married. A suit she did not recognize. A suit that had been chosen by someone else. "Where's Camilla?" he said. "No hello, no how are you? No, your father just died. Are you okay?" "Where's Camilla?" "She's in her room." "I got a call from the school." "Yes, so did I, 6 hours ago." "And you didn't think to tell me—" "I have not had a free minute, Garrett." "That's the problem, Elena. That's been the problem for a long time." She stepped aside. He walked in, looked around the apartment the same way Celeste had. Apparently, the women in his life had taught him the same survey. "Where is she?" "In her room with Isabella, doing homework." "Bring her out." "Garrett, bring her out, Elena. I want to talk to my daughter." She did not bring her out. She crossed her arms instead, stood between him and the hallway. "What did the principal tell you?" "He told me my 12-year-old daughter was using profanity in a school cafeteria. He told me this is the third incident this month. He told me there are concerns about her home environment." "Concerns about her home environment?" "Yes. Because of language she used at school. Because of a pattern, Elena. A pattern of being a kid whose grandfather just died." He looked at her like she had said something embarrassing. That was the look. That had always been the look. The look that said, "Why do you have to make everything emotional?" "She needs stability," he said. "She needs structure. She needs her father to show up more than once a month." "That's not fair." "It's not unfair either." "Elena?" "What?" "Genevieve and I have been talking." Genevieve. Of course they had been talking. Of course Genevieve had thoughts. Of course Genevieve, who had taken Garrett to a wedding last spring and posted 43 photos on Instagram, none of which included the twins, had thoughts about Camilla. And what did Genevieve say? She said the girls might do better in our neighborhood. Better schools. Better. Get out. Elena, get out, Garrett. I'm trying to help. You're trying to take my children. That's not what this is. That is exactly what this is. He stared at her. She stared back. For a moment, the air in the apartment hummed with the past. With every fight they had ever had. With every time he had said, "You're overreacting," and she had been right. With every time she had given in because she had been too tired to be right. And every time she'd promised herself, "This is the last time." This was the last time. "Get out," she said again. He got out. She locked the door behind him, pressed her forehead against the wood, counted backwards from 20. This time she got to 7 before her knees started to give. She slid down the door, sat on the floor of her own kitchen, her hand still on the lock. The bedroom door creaked open. Isabella peeked out, then Camilla. They saw her on the floor. They didn't say anything. They just walked over, sat down on either side of her, one on each side, the way they had when they were 6 and she had been crying on Christmas Eve because there was nothing under the tree. They didn't ask if she was okay. They knew the answer. "Mom," Isabella said softly. "Yes." "Genevieve called us baggage." Elena went still. "What?" "At their house, on the phone with her friend. She didn't think we could hear. She said she was stuck with the baggage for the weekend." Elena turned, slowly, looked at her daughter, at her other daughter, at those two faces she had carried in her body for 9 months and in her heart for 12 years. "When was this?" "2 weeks ago." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you would have made it worse." Camilla. "It's true, Mom. You always make it worse." That sentence. It went into her like a slow blade, not because Camilla had said it, but because Camilla had believed it. Because somewhere in the last 3 years, both of these girls had quietly decided that their mother was the kind of woman who made things worse. She tried to remember what kind of woman she had been before. She couldn't remember. That was the worst part. She couldn't remember. That night, she sat at the kitchen table with the photo album her father had given her last Christmas. "So you remember where you come from." That was what he had said. "So you remember." She turned the pages slowly. Her father at 20 just arrived in this country. His hair black, his smile uncertain, his suit borrowed. Her father at 30 standing in front of the North Star gas station on the day he bought it. The yellow star above his head freshly painted. His arm around his young wife. Her mother. So beautiful, Elena had to look away. Her father at 40 lifting little Elena up onto the counter while she helped him count quarters from the register. Her father at 60, her father at 65, her father holding the twins at the hospital, both babies tiny in his big, careful hands. His face soft in a way she had never seen on any other man's face in her life. The last photo was from last Christmas, 3 months ago. He had already been sick. He'd hidden it well. But now looking at the photo, Elena could see what she had not seen at the time. The shadows under his eyes, the slight thinness in his cheeks, the grip on Camilla's shoulder a little too tight. He had known. He had already known. And he had not told her. She closed the album. She did not cry. She did not cry. She did not. She just sat there. And eventually the sun came up. The lawyer's office was in one of the few buildings downtown that had an elevator that worked. Glass and steel. A reception desk with a small bowl of mints. A woman behind the desk who smiled at Elena like Elena was a person who deserved smiling at. Third floor. Henrik Walsh, attorney at law. Elena clutched the photo album to her chest. It was the only thing she had brought. She didn't know why she had brought it. She knew nobody would ask to see it. She just couldn't leave it at home. She stepped off the elevator. She saw them before they saw her. Adrian in a charcoal gray suit. Celeste in cream again with a different bag. Their spouses sat behind them neutral and well-dressed. A small army of money. Adrian saw her first. Finally. He checked his watch as he said it. Performatively. Celeste turned, looked Elena up and down. The slow inventory. "Elena, you look rested." "Hello to you too." A door opened. Henrik Walsh stepped into the waiting area. Late 60s, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, kind eyes behind them. The kind of eyes that had seen too many families come apart in his office and had learned to be soft about it. He came straight to Elena, hugged her. I'm so sorry, Elena. She held herself stiff for a moment, then let go, just for the briefest second. Thank you, Henrik. Come, everyone. Please follow me. The conference room had a long wooden table, leather chairs, a box of tissues set quietly at one end. Elena did not want to look at the box of tissues. The box of tissues meant this was the kind of meeting where someone was going to need one. She chose a chair at the far end of the table. Adrian and Celeste sat together at the other end, as if they were a team, as if Elena were the opposing side. Maybe they were. Maybe she was. Henrik opened a folder. Thank you all for coming. We're here today to discuss the last will and testament of Antonio Eduardo Martinez. His voice was steady, professional, kind. Antonio's will is straightforward. He had a clear vision for how his assets should be distributed. I'll do my best to keep the legal language to a minimum. Adrian leaned forward. Henrik, before we begin, Celeste and I have been reviewing the finances. We're prepared to handle any outstanding debts. That's generous of you, Henrik said, but unnecessary. Unnecessary. Antonio's affairs were in order. A pause. Celeste looked at Adrian. Adrian looked at Celeste. Henrik continued. I'll begin with the smaller bequests. To Adrian Martinez, my eldest son, I leave my collection of vintage car manuals in the sum of $50,000. Adrian blinked. $50,000. Yes. Where would Dad get $50,000? A modest life insurance policy. Henrik shuffled a page. To Celeste Martinez, my daughter, I leave my collection of vinyl records and the sum of $50,000. Celeste's husband touched her arm. She did not move. Elena sat very still, waiting. The album in her lap, her hands folded over it like a prayer book. Maybe a photograph. Maybe a memento. Maybe. And now, Henrik said the primary bequest. He looked up, looked at Elena, held her gaze for one long, gentle second. To Elena Martinez, my youngest daughter, I leave the North Star gas station and all of its contents, including the attached apartment, all inventory, all equipment, and any other assets associated with the property. The room did not breathe. Then Adrian laughed, a short, sharp, ugly laugh. The gas station. Yes. He left her the gas station. Yes. Celeste's face had gone white, white like an envelope, white like a wall. That property is worth 4 times what we got in cash. That is correct. This is not balanced, Henrik. It was Antonio's clear wish. He was sick. He was lucid. He was on medication. He was assessed for cognitive function 8 months ago by a board-certified psychiatrist who I would be happy to put you in touch with. The assessment was thorough. The results were unambiguous. Adrian turned to Elena. What did you say to him? She looked at him. I didn't say anything. You convinced him. I didn't see him alone for the last 6 months, Adrian. He was at your house every Sunday. Yours, not mine. That was true. That was inarguably true, and it stopped him for a half second. Until it didn't. Henrik, can we contest this? You may try. What does that mean? It means you may try. But Antonio anticipated this conversation. He opened a smaller envelope. He left a letter. He asked me to read it. He cleared his throat. He began. My dear children, if you are hearing these words, then I have passed on to whatever comes next. I hope it is somewhere with good fishing and better coffee. Elena let out a sound, half laugh, half sob, pressed her hand to her mouth. Henrik's eyes crinkled. He kept reading. I know my decision regarding North Star gas station may come as a surprise to some of you. Adrian, Celeste, you have built successful lives. You have wealth status and security. You do not need a struggling gas station to add to your portfolios. Adrian's jaw tightened. Elena has faced challenges, a difficult divorce, the raising of 2 extraordinary granddaughters on her own, long hours and short paychecks. Through all of it, she has never lost her kindness, or her spirit, or the part of her that reminds me most of her mother. Elena's eyes burned. The gas station may not seem like much to you. To some of you, it may seem like a burden, a failing little business in an outdated building on the wrong side of town. Henrik paused, looked up, looked at Elena, then read the next sentence very slowly. But Elena, mija, I promise you, North Star has more to offer than meets the eye. The room had stopped breathing again. Take your time, explore it, look closely. Some doors are hidden in plain sight. Henrik finished the letter, set it down, folded it gently into its envelope. Adrian was the first to speak. This is absurd. He clearly wasn't thinking straight. He was thinking very straight, Henrik said. Celeste turned to Elena. Her voice was a hot, controlled thing, a blade in a velvet sheath. Elena, sweetheart, be reasonable. Reasonable. You cannot possibly want to run a gas station. I haven't decided what I want. Adrian and I will take it off your hands. 25,000, right now, today. We will have the paperwork drawn up by tomorrow. 25,000. For a piece of commercial real estate on a corner lot, 25,000. For her father's life. Elena did not laugh. She wanted to, but she did not. 25,000, she said. It's more than fair. It is not. Elena, it is not fair, Celeste. Adrian leaned in. Fine. 50,000. No. Elena, I said no. Adrian stared at her, like he had never heard her say that word before. Maybe he hadn't. You don't know what you're doing, he said. You're right. You don't know how to run a business. You're right. You'll lose everything within a year. Maybe. Then sell it. No. There was a long, ugly silence. The kind of silence that ends marriages. The kind of silence that ends families. The kind of silence Elena had been afraid of her whole life. She stood up. She straightened her dress. She picked up the photo album. Henrik, thank you for everything. Of course, Elena. Is there anything else I need to sign today? No, take your time. Read everything. I'll send copies to your home. Thank you. She walked toward the door. Adrian called after her. Elena, be sensible. She did not turn around. She walked out. The elevator was empty going down. She let herself shake for the first time. Just a little. Her hands on the rail. Her teeth pressed together hard. The lobby was empty too. She made it almost to the door before someone called her name. Elena, wait! Henrik. He was hurrying down the hall toward her briefcase in hand. He had moved fast for a man his age. Henrik, I'm glad I caught you. What is it? There's one more thing. Your father asked me to give you this privately, not in front of the others. He was very specific. He reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out an envelope. Plain, white, no name. He pressed it into her hand. He said you would understand it when the time came. He said you might not understand it right away, but you would eventually. Elena turned the envelope over in her hand. It was heavier than it should have been. There was something hard inside, something small. Henrik, what is this? I don't know. I never asked. He didn't want me to know. She looked up at him. He had secrets from his own lawyer. Henrik gave her a small, sad smile. Elena, your father had secrets from everyone. She thanked him. She walked out. She sat in her car in the parking garage for 10 full minutes before she opened the envelope. When she finally did, two things fell into her lap. A small folded note in her father's handwriting, and a brass key. The key was old, heavy, cold, older than anything that should have been in her father's modest little life. She picked it up, held it in her palm, felt the weight of it. She unfolded the note. 3 sentences. In her father's careful, slanted hand. Some doors are hidden in plain sight. Look with your heart, mija, not just your eyes. And don't be afraid of what you find. She sat very still. The brass key warmed in her palm. She did not drive home. She drove to North Star gas station instead. It was a 40-minute drive across town, past neighborhoods she used to know, past the elementary school she had attended, past the church where her mother had been buried, past the strip mall where she had had her first job at 16 bagging groceries when her father had told her, "Learn what hard work feels like, Mija, so you know how to respect it in others." She parked in the cracked lot. The yellow star above the sign had faded to mustard. One of the pumps still worked. The other had been dead for 6 years. The little convenience store attached to the back had a hand-lettered sign in the window. Closed. Out of respect. Will reopen soon. She had not put up that sign. Somebody had. Some loyal customer, maybe. Some old friend of her father's. She unlocked the front door. The bell jingled. The smell hit her first. Coffee and engine oil. Her father's aftershave still faintly in the wood of the counter. The leather of his old jacket somewhere in the back room. Her knees almost gave out. She made it to the counter, set down the brass key, set down the note, set down the photo album. She stood in the empty store, just stood, for a long, long time. Then she walked through the door behind the counter into her father's small office. The same desk, the same chair, the same little calendar still showing the month he died, the same filing cabinet against the back wall, the same bookshelf next to it. She stepped closer to the bookshelf, pulled out a book at random. It was a paperback, spine cracked, title in a language she did not recognize. She put it back. She pulled out another, different language, and another, a third language. She frowned. Her father had spoken Spanish and English. That was all. That was all she had ever heard him speak. She put the books back. Slowly, she turned. She looked at the filing cabinet. She looked at the wall behind it. She looked at the small space where the cabinet did not quite meet the corner. Her father's note was still in her hand. Some doors are hidden in plain sight. Look with your heart, mija, not just your eyes. She stepped forward. She put her palms against the cabinet. She pushed. It scraped against the floor. Heavy. Heavier than she expected, but it moved. 6 inches. 12. 18. She stepped behind it. She ran her hand along the paneling on the wall. At first, it felt the same as the rest of the wall. But then she felt it. A faint seam, a thin line in the paneling, barely visible, just barely there. Just where a panel met another panel in a way that didn't match the rest of the wall. She pressed her fingers against it. She pressed harder. There was a soft click. The wall shuddered. A small section of paneling slid sideways. Just an inch. Just enough. Behind it, in the wall, where there should not have been a lock, there was a lock. An old lock. A heavy lock. Brass. She looked down at the key in her hand. She looked up at the lock. She looked back down at the key. And she lifted the key, slowly, and slid it into the lock, and turned it. The wall shuddered again, deeper this time. A sound like something old and heavy waking up after a very long sleep. And then very slowly the door began to swing open. The door swung open. A breath of cold air hit her face. Cold. Dry. Older than the gasoline smell of the store. Elena stood in the doorway, hands still on the lock, heart climbing up the back of her throat. Because what was beyond the door was not a closet, not a storage room, not a hidden safe full of cash like in the movies. It was a hallway, a short, narrow hallway with concrete walls and a single bare bulb hanging from a wire. The bulb flickered on when the door opened, some kind of motion sensor, some kind of system, some kind of someone who had thought about this for a long, long time. She stepped inside, just one step, because if she took two, she might not be able to step back out. The hallway ended in a small alcove, and in the alcove was a service elevator, old, industrial, brass frame buttons. The kind of elevator they used to put in hotels in the 1950s when steel was thick and people built things to last. There was no call button. There was a keypad. Of course there was a keypad. She stared at it. She had a brass key, a note, a father who had spoken 3 languages he had never told her about, and now a keypad in a hidden alcove, behind a wall in the office of a gas station that she had eaten dinner inside as a little girl. She turned around. She walked back out. She pushed the panel closed behind her, pushed the filing cabinet back over it, stood there for a long minute in her father's office staring at the wall as if the wall might explain itself. It did not explain itself. She locked up the store. She drove home. She did not turn on the radio. She did not turn on her phone. She did not check her messages. She did not stop for gas even though Henry's needle was below the red line. Because if she stopped, she would think. And if she thought, she would scream. And she could not scream in public, not yet. She picked up the twins from Mrs. Halloran across the hall, said thank you, said sorry I'm late, said yes, everything's fine, just a long day at the lawyer. Mrs. Halloran looked at her for a long moment. Mrs. Halloran was 71. Mrs. Halloran had buried 2 husbands. Mrs. Halloran knew the look on a woman's face when the world had just tilted. She didn't ask, she just patted Elena's hand. Cinnamon rolls in the morning, mija. I'll knock at 7. Elena almost cried. Almost, but she made it inside her own apartment before she did. The girls were watching her. She felt them watching her. She put the photo album on the kitchen counter, pulled the envelope from her purse, took out the note, took out the brass key, set them all on the counter side by side like little exhibits at a trial. Mom, yes. What happened today? Elena looked at her daughter, at Isabella, who had inherited her father's eyes, but somehow Elena's stillness, who at 12 already understood when something was too big to be carried alone. I don't know yet, baby. What does that mean? It means I'm going to need both of you to be patient with me for a little while. Are we in trouble? No. Are you in trouble? Maybe. That was the truest answer she could give. She fed them dinner, spaghetti from a box, sauce from a jar. She sat across from them at the small table. Watched them eat. Watched the way Isabella twirled her fork the way Elena's mother had. Watched the way Camilla pushed her sauce to one side of the plate the way Elena's father had. So many ghosts in this kitchen. So many ghosts in 12-year-old faces. Mom. Yes. Are we going to be okay? Elena reached across the table, took both their hands, held them tight. Yes. She didn't know if it was true, but she meant it. She really, really meant it. That night after the girls were asleep, Elena sat at the kitchen table and stared at the brass key. She thought about the keypad in the alcove. She thought about her father's 3 languages. She thought about the bookshelf with paperbacks and scripts she could not read. She thought about the way Adrian and Celeste had looked at each other in the lawyer's office. Not surprised, not confused, already planning, as if they had been waiting for this exact moment for years, as if they had already known something Elena hadn't. She picked up the brass key again. She turned it slowly between her fingers. What kind of man? What kind of father? What kind of life had Antonio Martinez been living when nobody was looking? She did not sleep that night. By 6 in the morning, she had made a decision. She dropped the girls at school, drove straight back to the gas station, put the close sign back in the window, locked the front door from the inside. She walked into the office. She pushed the filing cabinet aside. She pressed the seam. She heard the click. She stepped into the alcove. She stood in front of the keypad and stared at it. A 6-digit code. It could be anything. Her father's birthday, her mother's birthday, the twins' birthday, the date he came to America, the date he bought the gas station, the date her mother died. She tried his birthday first. The keypad flashed red. She tried hers. Red. She tried the twins. Red. She thought. She thought hard. Some doors are hidden in plain sight. Look with your heart, mija, not just your eyes. She closed her eyes. What was the date her father loved most? Not his own birthday, Not anyone's, not a holiday, not an anniversary, not even her mother's. It was something simpler than that. It was something he had told her once when she was little. They had been sitting on the back step of the gas station eating ice cream sandwiches in the summer heat, and he had pointed to the cracked concrete under their feet. You know what this place means to me, mija? What? It means freedom. It means I made it. The day I signed the papers for this gas station was the most important day of my life. More important than my wedding. More important than the day you were born. Because without this place, there is no wedding. There is no you. There is nothing. She had been 8 years old. She had laughed at him. She had said, more important than the day I was born. And he had laughed too. He had said, don't tell your mother. The date. The date he had signed the papers. She had seen it in a frame on his wall once. A copy of the deed, August 15th, 1978. She typed 0815778. The keypad flashed green. The elevator hummed. The door slid open. She stepped inside. There were 3 buttons, G for ground, B for basement, and a third one marked with a small star. She pressed B. The elevator dropped. It dropped longer than 1 floor. It dropped longer than 2. When it finally stopped, the doors opened onto a corridor lit by warm, recessed lights. Concrete floor, white walls, a door at the end. She walked toward the door. Her heels echoed. She had not worn heels yesterday. She did not know why she was wearing them today. Maybe because if she was going to walk into her father's secret life, she wanted to look like a woman who had decided something. She turned the handle. She pushed. The room beyond the door was large, larger than the entire gas station upstairs. It was an office, a workspace, walls lined with filing cabinets, a long desk down the center with 3 monitors and a small lamp, a wall of framed photographs, a bookshelf taller than she was filled with binders, a small kitchenette in the corner, a leather chair, a pair of reading glasses still folded on the desk where her father had left them. She stood in the doorway. She did not cry. She did not breathe either. She walked forward. Slowly, she touched the desk, the lamp, the reading glasses, her father's reading glasses, the ones he had owned for 10 years, the ones she had teased him about last Christmas because the frames were so out of style. She picked them up, held them against her chest. He had sat here. Her father, her quiet, gentle gas station owning father, had sat in this chair, in this room, under this lamp, reading something in those reading glasses, while Elena was 12 feet above him, pouring coffee for tourists. For how many years? She turned to the wall of photographs. She walked over. She studied them. Photos of her father, of course, but also photos of people she did not recognize. Photos of him with a young woman holding a baby, photo of him with a teenage boy in a graduation gown, photo of him with an older man wearing a chef's coat, photo of him with a couple cutting a wedding cake, photo of him with a little girl on a tricycle, photo of him at someone's birthday party, photo of him at someone's funeral, photos of him at the back step of the gas station holding the gas station's old kitten on his lap with someone Elena had never seen before laughing in the background. Hundreds of photos, strangers in every one of them, but not strangers, because in every photo her father was smiling. Not the polite smile he used for tourists, the other smile, the one he had only ever shown his family. So who were these people? Who were these hundreds of people? She turned to the filing cabinets. She opened the nearest one. Inside were folders, hundreds of folders, each one labeled with a name. Maria Delgado, 1991. Khalid Rahmani, 1993. Esperanza Ortiz, 1997. Tomas Ferreira, 2001. And on and on and on. She pulled one out at random. Inside was a stack of documents, a photocopy of someone's ID, a handwritten letter in a language she could not read, a list of phone numbers, a receipt for a bus ticket, a note in her father's handwriting. Found him a job at Domingo's Bakery. Wife arrived 3 months later. Daughter in high school now. Doing well. She put it back. She pulled out another. Different name, different decade, same kind of contents, same kind of note. She put it back. She pulled out a third, her father's handwriting again. She closed the drawer. She sat down in his chair. The leather still held the shape of him. She placed both hands flat on the desk. She tried to breathe. The bell upstairs rang. She froze. Because the bell over the front door of the gas station did not ring unless someone had opened that door. And she had locked that door, and she had hung the closed sign in the window, and nobody should have been able to come in. She heard footsteps above her. She heard a voice. "Hello, Antonio. Is anybody here?" "Antonio, it's Margaret." A woman's voice. Older, accented, confused. Elena stood up, quickly, took the elevator up, closed the panel behind her, pushed the filing cabinet back into place, smoothed her hair, walked out into the store. A woman was standing by the front counter. Late 50s, maybe early 60s, slim, gray hair pulled back into a low knot, a camel-colored coat that had seen better decades but was still beautiful in the way that only old expensive things could be. Her eyes were calm. Her eyes were also assessing Elena very carefully. "I'm sorry," the woman said. "The door was unlocked. I didn't realize." "It's all right. You must be Elena." A pause. "Ma'am, how did you know that?" The woman smiled, just a little. "Antonio talked about you. He kept a picture of you and your daughters by the register." She pointed. Elena turned, looked behind the counter, a small framed photograph. The twins at age 6 sitting on the steps of the gas station. Elena behind them, smiling, tired, but smiling. She had never noticed it there before. "What's your name?" Margaret Sorensen." "You knew my father?" "Yes." "How did you know my father?" "He was my friend." "For how long?" 23 years. 23. 23 years. 23 years, and Elena had never once heard the name Margaret Sorensen come out of her father's mouth. "Mrs. Sorensen." "Margaret, please." "Margaret, I'm afraid I don't know what to do with that." The older woman tilted her head, studied Elena. The way someone studies a piece of furniture, they are deciding whether to keep or to give away. "I would imagine not. May I sit?" There was no chair. Margaret gestured to a small stool behind the counter. Elena nodded. Margaret sat, carefully, as if her knees had opinions about the matter. "Antonio told me, Margaret said that if anything ever happened to him, I should come find you. Not right away, after the will was read, after you had time to adjust. He said you would be confused. He said you would be hurt. He said you might be angry. And he said the most important thing I could do was tell you the truth slowly, in pieces, the way he would have." Elena did not move. "What truth?" "The truth about him." "What about him?" Margaret folded her hands in her lap. "Your father was a quiet man, Elena, but quiet men can build very loud lives. He just chose not to show his." Elena gripped the edge of the counter. "What did he do, Margaret?" "He helped people." "Help them with what?" "Help them stay. Help them find work. Help them find apartments. Help them learn English. Help them open bank accounts. Help them sue employers who refuse to pay them. Help them get their children into schools. Help them when their husbands beat them. Help them when their wives left them. Help them when they did not know who else in the country knew their name." Margaret looked at her steadily. "For 30 years, Elena, your father helped people. Quietly, in a back room, in an apartment upstairs, in phone calls and bus tickets and bank loans signed in his own name. He never advertised. He never asked for anything in return. He had a rule. The rule was, you do not have to repay me. The rule was someday when you can help someone else." Elena's mouth was dry. "How many people?" "I don't know an exact number." "Margaret, More than 500, probably closer to 1,000, across 30 years. 1,000 people. 1,000. She thought about the wall of photographs downstairs. She thought about the filing cabinets. She thought about her father's hands, those big, careful hands that had taught her to ride a bike, that had counted quarters at the register, that had held the twins when they were born. 1,000 people. Margaret? Yes. How did you meet him? The older woman's eyes softened. I came to this country in 1999, from a place that doesn't exist anymore, with a child, no husband, no money, no English. Just a piece of paper with the name of a man who would help. I had been told, by a friend, who had been told, by another friend. The name on the paper was Antonio Martinez. The address was a gas station. She paused. He gave me a bed in the apartment upstairs for 2 months. He found my son a school. He found me a job. He fed us when I had nothing. He never asked for a single thing. When I tried to repay him 8 years later when I had my own house and my own savings, he said the same thing he said to everyone. What? Help somebody else. Elena pressed her hand against the counter. Did he do this every day? No, most days he sold gas. Then how? He sold gas, Elena. He also did this. He could do both. He did do both for 30 years. She tried to picture it. She tried to picture her father, the man who had asked her not to overspend on his birthday gifts, the man who had worn the same flannel jacket for 20 winters, the man who had eaten the same lunch of cheese and bread every single day she had ever known him. That man had helped 1,000 people start lives in a country that hadn't been ready to give them anything. She sat down, on the floor, right where she was standing, just sat down. Margaret did not move from her stool. She just looked at Elena with quiet patience, the kind of patience that knew there was no rushing this moment. Elena, yes, he had reasons for not telling you. I'd love to hear them. He did not want to put you in danger. Some of the work was sensitive. Some of the people he helped had been hurt by people who would have hurt them again if they had been found. He kept it quiet because keeping it quiet kept everyone safe, not just him. Why are you telling me now? Because he asked me to. She reached into her coat, pulled out a small envelope. She handed it to Elena. The envelope was a twin to the one Henrik Walsh had given her. Same plain paper, same weight, same handwriting on the front. Mija. Elena opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper, and on it in her father's writing, if Margareta finds you Mija, you can trust her. Listen to her. She knows what I cannot now tell you myself. The work is not finished, but it is yours now, only if you want it. Elena looked up. Margaret was watching her. What do you mean it's mine? Antonio left you more than the gas station, Elena. What did he leave me? Margaret stood up. She crossed to the counter. She pulled a small folder from inside her coat. She placed it gently on the counter between them. Look. Elena opened it. Inside were property records, deeds, titles, real estate, pages and pages. She skimmed the first one. A vacant lot 2 blocks east of the gas station purchased in 1985 for $9,000. She turned the page. Another lot, 3 blocks south, 1986, $11,000. Another, 1989, $6,000. Another, 1991, $12,000. Lot after lot, year after year, land all around the gas station. Land her father had been buying, quietly, anonymously, through a small holding company with a name she did not recognize. Land that had been useless, cracked desert, and abandoned warehouses in the 1980s, and was now the new business district, the new commercial corridor, the street that the city had renamed and the mayor had cut a ribbon on 3 years ago. Elena's hands shook. How much? Margaret spoke gently. At current market value, the land alone, Elena, is worth approximately $80 million. dollars. 80 million. 80 million. That can't be right. It's right. That can't be right, Margaret. It is Mija. He bought it when it was nothing. He held it for 40 years, and the city grew around him. Elena looked at the records again. Lots she had driven past her whole life. The corner where the new bank was. The corner where the new pharmacy was. The little strip mall with the dry cleaner. The empty lot where the city wanted to build the new community center. All of it. All of it. Her father's. Her father's who had worn the same boots for 15 years. Her father's who had told her to be careful at the grocery store last fall because rotisserie chickens were on sale for $5.99 and she should buy two. Her father's who had quietly, patiently for 40 years accumulated $80 million worth of land while she had thought he was struggling to pay his property taxes. She put the folder down. She put her face in her hands. Margaret. Yes, Mija. Is there more? A pause. There is one more thing. Tell me. You should see it for yourself. Antonio left you a recording. It is downstairs, in the room you have already found. Elena looked up. You know about that? I helped him build it. She walked back down. Margaret followed. The basement room felt different the second time. Bigger, quieter, as if it had been waiting for her to come back. Margaret had led her to the long desk, to one of the monitors. She touched the keyboard. The screen woke, a password prompt. Use his deed date again, Elena typed. The screen unlocked. The desktop was simple, clean, a few folders, and in the center a video file labeled in her father's hand. For Elena, Mija. She clicked it. The screen filled with his face. Her father, Antonio Martinez, sitting in this same chair, wearing the reading glasses she had just held against her chest, looking directly into the camera with the kind of slow, careful gaze he had always had. He looked thinner than she remembered. He had recorded this in the last few weeks. He cleared his throat. Mija! Her hand flew to her mouth. If you are watching this, then you have already found the door, and the room, and probably Margaret. She is a good woman. She is a friend. You can trust her. He paused. I know what you are feeling right now. I know it because I felt it once too. When I learned my own father had lived a life I knew nothing about. It is a strange grief, a grief for a person you thought you knew. But please, Mija, listen. The man you thought you knew was not a lie. He was just smaller than the truth. The man you knew was real. He was just only part of me. She was crying now. She did not remember when she had started. Let me explain. He folded his hands. When I came to this country in 1976, I was 20 years old. I had nothing. I had no English. I had no family here. The first man who helped me was a stranger in a diner who gave me his coat because I was shivering. The second was a Greek man who let me sleep in his garage for a month. The third was a woman in a church who taught me to read English from a children's book. None of them ever asked me for anything. They told me the same thing each time. Someday when you can. Help somebody. He smiled, very small. And so I did, Mija. When the gas station became mine in 1978, I made a small room in the back for people, just people, whoever needed it. I never planned to do this for 30 years. It just kept happening. One led to two, two led to 10, 10 led to 50. By the time I noticed it had become my life, my real life. Selling gas was the disguise. He paused. In 1990, Mija, a boy came to the door. 19 years old, hungry, sleeping under a bridge. I gave him the back apartment for the winter. I gave him a job washing the pumps. He stayed 7 months. He left in the spring. He kept in touch. He came back every Christmas for many years. Then he stopped coming because he had a business to run. But he never stopped sending money. I never spent it. I put it in a trust in your name. Elena's breath caught. The boy's name was Julian Kane. You may not know who he is, But your phone knows. Your daughter's phones know. He invented something 20 years ago that he sold to a company you have heard of. He is one of the richest men in this country. And Miha, when he learned 3 years ago that I was sick, he came to my hospital room. He sat by my bed. He asked me in front of my doctor what he could do for me. I told him, leave me alone, I am dying. He laughed. He said, no, Antonio, I owe you a life, so I will give one to your daughter. She could barely hear over her own heart. The trust he set up, Miha, with your name on it, is $120 million. She put her hand over her mouth. Plus the land I bought. About 80 million more. Plus a small amount of savings I kept in real banks. Maybe 400,000. He looked into the camera. $200 million, Miha, approximately. She made a sound that was not a word. This is not for fancy cars. It is not for big houses. It is not for retirement. It is for the work, Miha. The work that I started. The work that should not die with me. You can use what you need for your daughters, their school, their futures. Of course, that is yours. But the rest, Miha, the rest is for them. The people who still need a place to land, a place to start, a bed for the winter, a hand to hold in the dark. His voice cracked. I am sorry I never told you, Elena. I am sorry I let your sister and brother make you feel small all these years. I am sorry I let you struggle when I had the means to help. But Miha, please understand. If I had given you money, they would have taken it from you. They were already trying. They were already circling. They were already telling me you were unstable, that you were a bad mother, that you would waste anything I gave you. They did not know who you really were. I knew. I always knew. You were the only one I could trust with this. You were the only one I knew would do it right. Elena could not breathe. Be careful, Miha. Your brother and your sister know more than they admit. They have been searching for years. They have not found what you have found tonight. But they will keep searching. They will hurt you to find it. Be careful. He looked at her one last time, through the screen, across the gulf of weeks and death and silence. I love you, Elena Martinez. I am proud of who you are. Margaret will help you with whatever comes next. Trust her, trust yourself, and remember, the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight. The video ended. The screen went dark. Elena sat in her father's chair. The room was very quiet. Margaret stood at her shoulder, did not touch her, did not speak, just stood. Elena did not cry. Not yet. She just stared at the dark screen for a long, long time. Margaret. Yes, Miha. Did he say 200 million? Yes. Did he say $200 million? Yes, Miha. Is that real? It is real. She turned slowly in the chair. She looked up at the older woman. Margaret, I am a waitress. I cannot run $200 million. You will not run it alone. There is a team, lawyers, accountants, a small office in the city. They have been waiting for you to find this room. They will help. For how long? 20 years. Elena let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. He had a team. He had a quiet team, yes. For 20 years. Yes, Miha. She put her hands on her knees, breathed in, breathed out, tried to remember what air felt like. What do I do now? Margaret sat down on the corner of the desk, folded her hands. Now nothing. Tonight you go home. You hold your daughters. You sleep. Tomorrow we begin. Slowly, one step at a time. And my brother. And my sister. Margaret's eyes hardened, just a little. They will be a problem, Miha. Your father said so. He warned me. They have already started. What do you mean? I mean the offer of 25,000 was not the first move. It was the third. Elena frowned. What were the first and second? Margaret stood, walked toward the back wall, pressed a small panel. A drawer slid open. She pulled out a thin folder. She brought it to Elena. Look. Elena opened it. Inside were photocopies of letters, official-looking letters, on official-looking letterhead, from a tax collector's office, from a city zoning board, from a state licensing bureau. Each letter claimed the gas station owed thousands of dollars in back taxes, fines, and licensing fees. Each letter was addressed to her father. Each letter was dated within the last 6 months. He never paid these, Elena said. He never paid them because he never received them, mija. They are forgeries. Elena stared. Forgeries? Look at the seals, look at the language, look at the addresses they ask you to send checks to. They are not government addresses. They are private mailboxes. They were generated by someone trying to scare your father into selling, or since your father is gone to scare you. Who? Margaret held her gaze. Mija, you already know who. Elena's hand closed around the edge of the folder. She closed her eyes. Adrian, yes. And Celeste, yes. How long? At least 8 months. The first letter is dated September. Your father started receiving them right after he learned he was sick. We believe they thought he would either die before figuring it out, or sell in a panic. Either way, they were poised to buy the property quietly, through a holding company they own, which we have also identified. Elena felt sick. Sick. Sick in the deepest part of her stomach where her childhood lived. Her brother, her sister, her own blood, sending fake tax letters to their dying father, trying to scare an old man with cancer into giving up his land. Their land. The land he had bought before either of them were born. Margaret. Yes. Did he know it was them? He suspected. He did not have proof. He hoped he was wrong. He could not bring himself to believe it. So he waited. He took the letters off the table when you visited. He did not tell you. He did not tell me until the very end. What changed? He found one of the letters in Adrian's coat pocket. At Thanksgiving, Adrian had stuffed it there and forgotten. Antonio recognized his own handwriting on the envelope. He had been receiving a letter that day. He went into the bathroom and cried for an hour. He came out and never said a word. Elena stood up. She walked across the room. She walked back. She put her hand on the wall and tried to remember how to be a person inside her own body. They are my siblings. Yes. They were going to steal from a dying man. Yes. My siblings. Yes, mija. My brother, Adrian, held me when I was a baby. He did. There's a picture. He's 3 years old and he's holding me on his lap. I know, mija. How does a person go from that to this? Margaret did not answer, because there is no answer, because there has never been an answer, because every family in the history of the world has asked this question and no one has ever found one. Elena turned, looked at the older woman. Margaret, I need a few minutes. Of course. I need a few minutes alone in this room. I will be upstairs. She left. The elevator hummed. Elena stood in the middle of her father's hidden room, in her father's hidden life, in the truth of what her father had been doing while she had been counting tips at a diner, and her brother had been forging tax letters, and her sister had been buying her 17th handbag. She walked over to the wall of photographs. She put her hand on one, her father standing on the back step of the gas station, his arm around a young woman holding a baby. The young woman was crying, smiling, both at the same time. Elena had never seen the woman before in her life, but she knew that look on her face. It was the look of someone who had been told after a very long time of fear that she was finally safe. Elena rested her forehead against the photograph. She whispered, "Okay, Poppy. Okay." She rode the elevator back up. Margaret was waiting in the office, coat on, bag in hand. "Are you ready, mija?" "Not yet. What do you need?" Elena thought about it for a moment. She thought about Camilla on the school steps with her chin lifted, Isabella with her steady, watchful eyes, the duct tape on her shoe, the 25,000, the 50,000, the smile on Adrian's face when he said, "You don't know what you're doing." She thought about her father at Thanksgiving finding a forged tax letter in his son's coat pocket, crying for an hour in a bathroom, coming out and saying nothing. She straightened. I need to talk to them. Margaret paused. Adrian and Celeste. Yes. Mija, that is not safe yet. They do not know what we know. We need to gather more before. I am not going to confront them, Margaret. Then what? Elena picked up the brass key from the counter, slid it into her pocket. I am going to let them keep playing. Playing? Their game, their little game of pretend tax letters and lowball offers and tell Elena the place is worthless. Let them think they're winning. Margaret tilted her head. And then I will know exactly how much of my family I have left. Margaret smiled for the first time, a small, sharp, approving smile. You are your father's daughter. I'm starting to think I am, yes. That night, Elena did not sleep. She locked the apartment door, triple locked it, checked on the girls, both asleep, both safe, both breathing in that easy rhythm only 12-year-olds can have. She sat at the kitchen table. She made a list, things she had learned today. 1. Her father had owned land worth $80 million. 2. A man named Julian Kane had set up a trust in her name for $120 million. 3. Her father had spent 30 years secretly helping immigrants. 4. Her brother and sister had been sending forged tax letters to extort their dying father. 5. They were not going to stop. They were going to escalate. They were going to come for her next. She underlined number 5. Then she underlined it again. She did not feel afraid. That was the strange part. She felt clear. For the first time in 3 years since the divorce, since the moving, since the diner, since the slow erosion of her own sense of who she was, she felt clear. Her hands stopped shaking. She got up, made tea, sat back down, looked at the brass key on the counter. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Adrian, 3 a.m. She picked up. What? Elena? It's 3 in the morning, Adrian. I couldn't sleep. That's a personal problem. Elena, listen. About the gas station. What about it? Celeste and I have been talking. We want to make you a serious offer. You already made one. A real one this time. How much? 200,000. She let the silence stretch. She let him sit in it. She let him hear nothing but her breathing on the other end of the line. Elena, did you hear me? $200,000. I heard you. It's a good offer. It's not. Elena. You don't know what the gas station is worth, Adrian. You don't know what's inside it. You don't know who I just spent the day talking to. You don't know what I know. A pause, a long one. When he spoke again, his voice was different, lower, sharper. What did you just say? Good night, Adrian. Elena, what do you mean? What do you know? Good night. She hung up. She set the phone face down on the table. She picked up the brass key. She held it in her hand. For the first time in a very long time, Elena Martinez smiled. And outside in the dark, across the parking lot of her apartment building, a car engine started up. Slowly, quietly, headlights off, and began to roll toward the gas station, toward North Star, toward the door behind the filing cabinet, toward whatever else her father had hidden in plain sight. The phone rang at 3:47 in the morning. Elena was already awake. She had been awake for an hour, sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. Because she had known, the way mothers know, the way daughters know, the way women who have lost too much know. The phone rang. She answered before it finished its first note. Margaret, Mija, are the girls safe? They're asleep, in their beds. The door is locked. Why? There has been an attempt at the gas station. What kind of attempt? 2 men, back door, 5 minutes ago. Are they still there? They are gone. How do you know they are gone? A pause. Because I was there, mija. Elena went very still. Because Margaret Sorensen, a woman in her 60s who walked with a slight limp, was not the kind of person who chased off two men in the middle of the night by accident. Because Margaret Sorensen had said earlier that day calmly, there is a team, a small office in the city. They have been waiting for you to find this room. Because what kind of team, what kind of woman, what kind of life had her father actually been living? Margaret, yes, mija. Who were they? I think you know. She did. Of course she did. She had hung up on Adrian 47 minutes earlier. She had said the words, "You don't know what I know." And her brother, the man who had spent his life learning to be 3 steps ahead of a problem, had picked up his phone and made a call. Quietly, quickly, without any hesitation at all. Margaret, yes? Was anything taken? They did not get past the office. They did not find the door. They did not. They were looking for it. They were looking for something. They tore apart the bookshelf. They moved every drawer. They took photographs with their phones. They did not know what they were searching for, mija, but they knew it was there. Elena pressed her fingertips into the wood of the table. She breathed. She thought. And in the kitchen in the dark with her cold tea and her sleeping daughters and her dead father whispering in her ear, she did the math. Adrian, 3 a.m., phone call, two men, 3:40, back door of the gas station. 43 minutes between her hanging up and them arriving. So they had been close. So they had been waiting. So Adrian had not been hiring help. Adrian had been giving the help in order. She closed her eyes. Margaret, yes, he has been preparing for this. For a long time, mija. How long? Longer than your father had been sick. I believe at least 3 years, possibly 5. 5. Possibly. She felt cold. Cold the way you feel cold after you have been told something the body understands faster than the mind. Because 5 years ago, Antonio had not been sick. 5 years ago, Antonio had been a healthy man in his early 60s, walking 5 miles every morning, eating his cheese and bread, calling Elena every Sunday afternoon at exactly 2 o'clock. 5 years ago, Adrian had already been planning to take everything. Margaret, yes. Stay at the gas station. Lock everything. I'm coming. Mija, it is the middle of the night. I'm coming. She hung up. She walked to the girls' room, stood in the doorway, watched them sleep. Isabella curled on her side, fist tucked under her chin. Camilla on her back, mouth open, one arm thrown above her head, the same way she had slept as a baby. Elena leaned her forehead against the doorframe, whispered, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for me too. But mostly for you. She woke Mrs. Halloran. The older woman opened her door in a robe and slippers and one curler still in her hair, and Elena did not have to say a single word. Mrs. Halloran took one look at her face and said, Come in, come in. What do you need? I need you to sleep on my couch tonight. The girls cannot wake up alone. Done. I might be back by morning. I might not. Done. Mrs. Halloran. Yes, mija. Thank you. Mrs. Halloran touched her cheek. Just once. Soft as cinnamon dust. Go. She drove. The streets were empty, stoplights blinking yellow. Elena drove fast. Too fast. Faster than Henry the sedan had moved in years. And while she drove, she thought about her brother. About Adrian. About the boy who had taught her to ride a bicycle when she was 4. About the teenager who had once punched a kid at her elementary school for calling her a name. About the young man at her wedding who had cried into his champagne and told her she deserved better than Garrett, and she had laughed because she thought he was being protective. What if he hadn't been? What if he had known? What if? What if? What if? She arrived at the gas station at 4:28. Margaret was already opening the door for her. The store inside was a mess. Books on the floor, drawers pulled out, paper scattered. But the filing cabinet had not moved. The seam in the wall was untouched. They had not known. They had not known. Yet. Mija, sit down. You are shaking. I'm not shaking. You are shaking. Elena sat down, on the floor of her father's store, knees up, forehead against her knees. She did not cry, because if she cried, she would never stop. And she could not afford to never stop. She had 2 daughters and 40 years of her brother's lies and a brass key in her pocket and a war to fight by sunrise. She lifted her head. Margaret, get the lawyer here today, whatever it costs, whatever it takes. Already called. He will be at the office at 7. Get the team here too. They are already on their way. Get me a phone that Adrian cannot trace. Done by tomorrow morning. Get me someone watching the girls' school. By drop-off. Elena nodded. She nodded again. She pressed the heel of her hand against her eye. Margaret? Yes. I am going to ruin them. I know, mija. My own brother, my own sister. I am going to ruin them. I know. Tell me I am right. Margaret knelt down, painfully, slowly, the way old knees fold. She took Elena's face in her hands. Mija, listen. They tried to steal from a dying man. They sent strangers into your father's office in the middle of the night. They have been circling your daughters. They are not your family anymore. They are something else now, and you are the only one who can stop them. She let go. She stood up, slow again, one hand on the counter. You are right, Elena. You are not just right. You are necessary. Elena did not move for a long minute. Then she stood. The team arrived at 5:45. 3 of them. A lawyer named Russell Aronowitz in his 60s, gray suit, gray eyes, hands like a piano teacher. An accountant named Priya Khatri in her 40s, glasses, leather folder, no nonsense. A private investigator named Marcus Cross in his 50s, retired police, calm face, calm voice, calm everything. Her father had hired them years ago. They had been waiting. For her. She sat across from them in the basement room, coffee in her hands, the wall of photographs behind her, the filing cabinets behind them, her father everywhere in the room and also nowhere. Russell spoke first. Miss Martinez, your father told us this day would come. He did. He gave us instructions. He gave us authority. He gave us money. He told us the day you sat in this chair, we would belong to you. She held the coffee tighter. What do I need to do? Nothing right now. Listen. She listened for 2 hours. Russell laid out the legal situation. Priya laid out the financial. Marcus laid out the protective. Russell explained the structure of the trust, the holdings, the protections her father had built in the last decade of his life. Priya laid out the cash flow, the property valuations, the projections. Marcus laid out the surveillance. The fact that Adrian had been watching her apartment building for at least 8 months. The fact that there were photographs of the twins at school in a folder on Adrian's laptop that Marcus had been monitoring quietly for almost a year. That last one made her stand up. You knew. Marcus did not flinch. Your father authorized it. He wanted us to watch them. He wanted us to keep them safe. He told us not to act unless they were in danger. They have not been. They are in danger. They are now. They were not before this week. Now there is an active risk, and we are responding to it. There will be eyes on them from drop-off to pickup starting today. There will be eyes outside your apartment building. There will be eyes on this gas station. They will not touch your children, Miss Martinez. I promise you that. She stared at him. She believed him. She did not know why she believed him. But she did. She sat back down. Okay, she said. What's next? Russell folded his hands. Next, we confront them. Today. Today. She wore black. Not because it was funereal, because it was the color her father had told her once made her look like she could not be argued with. She drove to Celeste's house. Celeste lived in a neighborhood with electric gates and landscaping so manicured it looked embarrassed about itself. Elena pulled into the driveway, got out, did not lock the car. Because there was nothing in the car worth stealing, and she was not in a mood to be careful. She rang the bell. Celeste answered. In a silk robe, hair in a clip, no makeup. The first time Elena had seen her without makeup in 15 years. She looked older, smaller, mortal. Elena, what are you doing here? Where's Adrian? What? Adrian, where is he? Elena, it's 8 in the morning. What are you? Get Adrian on the phone. A pause, a breath. Celeste turned. She went into the house. Elena followed her without being invited. In the living room on the cream couch that probably cost more than Elena had earned in 2 years, Celeste's husband was reading a newspaper. He looked up. He looked at Elena. He looked at his wife. He picked up the newspaper. He walked out. Smart man. Celeste picked up her phone, tapped a contact, held it to her ear. Adrian, she's here, yes, now, right now. Come over. She hung up, sat down, crossed her legs, smiled the smile. Coffee? No. Tea? No. Elena, why are you being so dramatic? Why did your men try to break into the gas station last night? The smile flickered, only for a second. Then it was back, wider, tighter. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Elena, sweetheart, I think the stress of all this is don't. Don't what? Don't sweetheart me. A car pulled into the driveway. Adrian. He walked in without knocking, as if he lived there. Maybe he did. Maybe Adrian and Celeste had been living in each other's lives for decades just out of Elena's view. He looked at Elena. He looked at Celeste. He sat down across from them in an armchair. He crossed his ankles. Elena. Adrian. You look upset. I look awake. A small ping-pong silence. Adrian leaned forward. What do you want? I want to know how long. How long what? How long you've been planning this? Planning what? Adrian, don't. He looked at her. Really looked. For maybe the first time in 20 years. And in his face she saw something she had never wanted to see. The cold, calculating, perfectly assembled face of a man who had been calculating for so long that calculation had replaced his bones. Elena, you're confused. I'm not. You've been through a lot. I have. Let me make this easier. 500,000 for the gas station. Cash. Today. We sign papers by Friday. You walk away with more money than you have ever held in your life. You move somewhere nice. You put the girls in a better school. We forget any of this happened. She didn't answer. He waited. She still didn't answer. He leaned back. Fine. 750. Silence. 1 million. Silence. 2 million, Elena. $2 million. For a corner lot with a building that is falling apart. We're being generous because we love you. You don't realize it yet, but we are doing this for you. She looked at him for a long, long minute. Then she said, Adrian, yes, I know what's under the gas station. His face did not change, but Celeste's did. For exactly half a second, she saw it. She saw the flicker, the fast, small panic, the recalibration, the reassembly. Half a second. That was all Elena needed. You don't know what's under the gas station, Adrian said calmly. I do. You don't, Elena. You're bluffing. $80 million in land, she said. A trust fund of $120 million from a man named Julian Kane. 30 years of documents. Letters from forged government offices that you mailed to your dying father. 312 names of immigrants Dad helped over 30 years. A wall of photographs and a brass key. She paused. She took a breath. And a video recording of him explaining all of it. To me, by name. She watched her brother's face. She watched a 30-year-old structure crack in real time. It was small. It was just a tightening around his eyes. But it was enough. I'm not selling the gas station, Adrian. I'm not selling anything. I am not signing a single piece of paper. I am not taking a single dollar from you. And if you ever send another person to that property at night, I will spend 10 million of Dad's dollars making sure you go to prison for a very, very long time. She stood up. She walked toward the door. Celeste said her name. Elena did not turn around. She did not turn around. She did not turn around. She got in her car. She drove out of the gated neighborhood. She got 2 blocks away. She pulled over. And then she cried. Loud. Ugly. From the bottom of her stomach. The kind of cry that had been waiting 6 weeks to happen. She cried for her father. She cried for the brother she had thought she had. She cried for the sister. She cried for the 12-year-old version of herself who had believed her family loved her unconditionally. And then she wiped her face and drove to pick up the girls from school. Camilla was already crying when she got into the car. Eyes red, hair stuck to her cheeks. The kind of crying that had been happening for hours. Elena's hands gripped the steering wheel. What happened? Isabella answered for her. Brielle. Brielle what? She told the whole grade that we live above a gas station because we're poor and our mom couldn't afford a real house. Where did she get that information? Her mom told her mom. Brielle said her mom said it at dinner last night. Elena closed her eyes. Brielle's mother, of course. She pulled out her phone, called Marcus. Marcus? Yes. The mother of the girl bullying my daughter. Last name Wexler Hayes. Find me a connection to Adrian. Give me an hour. He called back in 38 minutes. Miss Martinez? Yes. Mrs. Wexler Hayes' husband sits on the board of Adrian's commercial real estate firm. They have been close associates for 9 years. The wives golfed together. They were at the same summer house in July. The bullying is not random. She gripped the phone. My 12-year-old has been getting bullied, strategically, for 9 months. Yes, Miss Martinez. By a child whose mother was instructed by my brother. That is my best read of the situation, yes. She thanked him. She hung up. She drove the girls home. She fed them dinner. She tucked them in. She sat on the edge of Camilla's bed for a long time, brushed her daughter's hair back from her face. Camilla was already asleep. Camilla, who had been called names for 9 months because Camilla's uncle wanted to make Camilla's mother small. She bent over. She kissed her daughter's forehead. She whispered, "They will never touch you again." She locked the apartment. She poured herself a glass of wine. She had not bought wine in 2 years. She didn't even know why she had a bottle in the cupboard. But she poured it, sat at the kitchen table, took one sip, then another. The knock came at 11:43. Not Margaret's knock, not Mrs. Halloran's knock, not even Adrian's knock. A small, quiet, careful knock. A frightened knock. Elena got up. She looked through the peephole. Then she stepped back. Then she stepped forward. Then she opened the door. Genevieve, Garrett's wife, standing in the hallway, in a long coat, no makeup, hair wet from the rain that had started 10 minutes ago, eyes red, shaking, holding a small hard drive in her right hand. Elena, Genevieve, please, please, what? Please let me in just for a few minutes, please. Elena stared at her, stared, then stepped aside, stared, then Genevieve walked in. Did not sit. Stood in the middle of the living room, hair dripping on the carpet, shaking like a person who had not eaten or slept in 2 days. Genevieve, what are you doing? I have to tell you something. You can sit down. I can't sit down. If I sit down, I won't be able to say it. All right. Genevieve closed her eyes. She opened them. She started talking. Garrett did not meet you by accident. Elena did not breathe. What? He did not meet you by accident. 15 years ago. He did not meet you at the coffee shop. He did not meet you at the bookstore. He did not meet you the way he told you. None of that was real. Genevieve. Adrian arranged it. The room narrowed. The floor did something. Elena reached for the back of the couch and held on. What did you just say? Adrian and Garrett knew each other. They went to college together. They were fraternity brothers. Adrian called Garrett in the spring of 2010 and told him he had a sister. Adrian said, "My sister has just gotten out of a relationship and I need someone to take care of her." Adrian said, "I need someone in the family who reports to me." Adrian said, "Marry her, give her babies, and tell me what our father is doing every Sunday." Adrian said, "I will pay you." She breathed. Garrett said yes. Elena's knees did the thing they had done in the lawyer's office. She sat down, on the floor, right where she was, because the alternative was falling over. "Genevieve, why are you telling me this?" "Because I have more to tell you." "How could you possibly know any of this?" "Because I am the proof, Elena. I am the proof of it." "What does that mean?" Genevieve sat down too, on the floor, across from her, like two girls at a sleepover, except neither of them was a girl anymore. Neither of them had been a girl in a long time. She wiped her face. "I came to this country in 2008. I was 16 years old. I had nothing. I had no family in this country. I had a man who had told me he was bringing me here to work. He had not told me what kind of work. When I arrived, I learned what kind." She closed her eyes. "He kept me in a basement in a house for 11 weeks. He sold me. Many times, many people. I do not know how to tell this part." Elena felt sick. She felt sick. "Genevieve, one night I escaped. Through a window. I ran. I ran for hours. I did not know where I was going. I came to a gas station. The lights were still on. A man was inside, an older man. He had a kind face." She looked up, looked Elena in the eye. "He pulled me inside. He locked the door. He told me to sit. He gave me water. He gave me a blanket. He called nobody. He waited for me to stop shaking. And when I could finally speak, he asked me what I needed." Antonio. Antonio. Elena put her hand over her mouth. "He gave me the apartment upstairs for 9 months. He fed me. He found me a school. He found me a lawyer. He found me a counselor. He found me a family in another state where the man who had taken me could not find me. He sent me there. He paid for it. He never asked me for a single thing. When I asked how I could repay him, he said the words you already know. Help somebody else. Help somebody else." Elena was crying. She did not know when she had started. "Genevieve, why are you here? Why are you Genevieve? Why are you married to my ex-husband? Why are you the woman who called my daughter's baggage?" Genevieve looked at her. Her eyes were steady now. "Because 3 years ago, Antonio called me. He had not called me in 8 years. We did not stay in close touch by his request for my safety. He said, 'Mija.' He always called me Mija. He said, 'Mija, I need a favor.' He said, 'I think my son is going to hurt me. I think my son is part of something I have been investigating. I need someone close to him. I need someone in his world. And there is one place in his world I cannot reach. There is his sister. And there is his sister's ex-husband, who is in his pocket, and whose new wife sits at his dinner table." She laughed, a short, broken laugh. "He asked me to seduce Garrett." Elena closed her eyes. "He asked me to break up your marriage." "He asked me to break up." "Genevieve." "I said yes." A silence, a long one. The kind of silence that contains a lot of things. Mostly grief, some of it old, some of it new, all of it permanent. "Why did you say yes?" Elena whispered. "Because Antonio saved my life. Because I owed him. Because the way he said it, I knew he had thought about it for a long time. Because he told me you were already unhappy. Because he told me he would arrange for the divorce to be quick and clean and not damage you any worse than the marriage already had." "Genevieve." "He was right, Elena. Garrett was already drifting. I just made it easier. I just made it final. I just brought myself into the house so I could be the second pair of eyes inside Adrian's life that your father had been waiting for." She took a shaky breath. "I treated your daughters the way I treated them on purpose." Elena could not speak. "If I had been kind to them, Adrian would have wondered why. He would have asked questions. He would have done what Adrian does. So I was cold. I was a bad stepmother. I was Stephanie. I was Genevieve. I was every cruel cliche. And I am so sorry, Elena. I am so sorry. They are good girls. They are wonderful girls. And I was cruel to them so that one day I could give you this. She set the hard drive on the floor between them. Elena looked at it. What's on it? 10 years of every illegal transaction Adrian and Celeste have made, of every account, every shell company, every bribe, every laundered dollar, every immigrant they took advantage of in their development deals, every wage they stole, every signature they forged, including the tax letters they sent your father. She slid it closer. It is enough, Elena. It is enough to end them, and it is yours. Elena did not pick up the hard drive. Not yet. She just looked at this woman. This stranger who had been pretending to be a villain for 3 years so that Elena's father could die a little less afraid. This stranger who had let Elena hate her. This stranger who had let two 12-year-old girls call her baggage in their hearts. This stranger who was crying on the floor of Elena's apartment at midnight in a wet coat with all the worst stories in her body. Elena reached across the floor. She took Genevieve's hand. She held it. She did not let go. She just held it. For a long, long time. The world reorganized itself. Russell Aronowitz arrived at 6 the next morning with 3 associates and a courier service. By 8, the hard drive's contents had been copied, verified, and lodged with 3 separate federal offices. By noon, 2 journalists had been briefed. By the end of the week, the news had broken. Adrian Martinez, real estate developer. Investigation launched. Forgery, wire fraud, wage theft, witness intimidation. Celeste Martinez, real estate attorney. Investigation launched. Money laundering, fraudulent estate proceedings, conspiracy. Their faces on the local evening news. Their faces on the front page of the paper. Their faces being walked into a federal building, hands not yet cuffed, but soon to be. Elena did not watch. Elena was busy. She was at the school, where she sat down with the principal and told him in 3 short sentences exactly what had been happening to her daughter, and said this: stops today. And it stopped. The Wexler Hayes family pulled Brielle from the school within 2 weeks. The whispering stopped. The looks stopped. The lake house comments stopped. Camilla came home one day in May and told Elena that a girl in her grade had asked if they could be friends. Just like that. Just a girl. With kind eyes. Whose family had nothing to do with anything. Camilla said yes. Elena cried into her dish towel for an hour and a half. Garrett showed up at her door on a Thursday. He had lost weight. He had also lost the suit. He had lost everything Adrian had been paying him to be. He stood in her hallway in jeans and an old gray sweatshirt, and his hair was uncombed and his eyes were red, and he had been crying for about 36 hours straight. Elena, Garrett, can I come in? No. Please. You can stand right there, and I will stand right here, and we will talk for 5 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes, Garrett. Okay. He started, he stopped. He started again. I am so sorry. I know. You don't have to know. You can just listen. Okay. Elena, I was 23. He offered me money. He said you were going to be fine. He said you would never know. He said I would learn to love you. And I did, Elena. I did. I really did. I just was always there because he had put me there. Yes. It poisoned everything. Yes. The girls. Yes. Elena, I never knew the girls were a strategy. He told me about the babies as a coincidence. I swear to you, I did not know. The girls were the only thing I ever did honestly in 15 years. She looked at him. He was telling the truth. She knew him well enough at least to know when he was telling the truth. Eleanor called me, Elena said, my mother. Yes. What did she say? She offered to be in the room every time you see the girls from now on, until they're 18. or until they tell me they don't need her there, whichever comes first. He closed his eyes. My mother is a good woman. Yes, she is. She did not raise me to do what I did. No, she didn't. He swallowed. Elena, can I see them? With your mother in the room once a week for now. Yes, thank you. This is not forgiveness, Garrett. I know. This is for them. I know. Don't disappoint them again. I won't. You will. I will try not to. That's better. The memorial was set for the first Saturday in June. Elena had planned for 50 people. Maybe. She had told Margaret she wasn't even sure 50 would come. She had been worried about empty chairs. She had been worried about the gas station looking small. Margaret had said, Mija, don't worry about the chairs. The morning was warm. The sky was the kind of blue that happens once a summer. Elena arrived at the gas station at 7 in the morning to set up. She thought she would be alone. She was not. The parking lot was already full. Cars, trucks, 2 minivans, a family unloading folding chairs from the back of a station wagon, a grandmother in a sun hat sitting on the back step where her father used to drink coffee, a young father holding a baby who was holding a small photograph in her tiny fist. Elena stopped in the middle of the lot. She looked. She just looked. People were arriving in waves. By 8 a.m., there were 100. By 9, 200. By 10, when the service was scheduled to begin, the parking lot was a sea of people. Folding chairs spilled into the street. The city had blocked off 2 blocks. Margaret somehow had arranged that too. Elena had not known so many people existed in connection to her father. She walked through the crowd. Strangers turned to her, reached out, touched her shoulder, took her hand. A woman in her 60s. Your father bought me my first bus ticket, 1988. I am a nurse now, 40 years. I owe him everything. A young man. Your father paid for my mother's funeral when I had no money. I was 12. An older couple. Your father got us our first apartment. We have been married 30 years. We named our son Antonio. A teenage girl. Your father set up the scholarship that paid for my school last year. I'm going to college in the fall. The letter from him came after he died. He had pre-written it. A man in a suit. Ireland. A man in robes. From Sudan. A young woman with a sleeping toddler on her hip. From Mexico. An older woman with a cane. From Ukraine. A family of 6. From the Philippines. Every face had a story. 500 people. 600. A small stage had been set up by the gas pumps. A microphone. A small wooden table. A photograph of her father in the center. Elena climbed the steps. She held the microphone. She had written a speech. She did not give it. Instead, she looked out over the crowd. She said, "Thank you for coming." She said, "I did not know him." She said, "Most of you knew him better than I did, and I am here to learn from you today." People nodded. Some people wiped their eyes. She stepped down. And as she stepped down, a man walked forward from the back of the crowd. He was not in a suit. He was wearing a faded gray flannel shirt, jeans, worn boots, hands in his pockets. A face that nobody in the crowd recognized, but that Elena somehow did. She had seen it on a magazine cover at the grocery store. She had seen it in news clips she did not watch. She had heard her daughters mention his name when they were arguing about which app on their phones was best. Julian Kane. He climbed the steps. He took the microphone. He did not introduce himself. He just started talking. I was 19 years old, February of 1990. I had been sleeping under a bridge for 11 nights. It was snowing. I was going to die. I knew I was going to die. I had stopped feeling my hands. I started walking. I don't remember why I started walking. I just started walking. And I came to this gas station. The crowd was silent. There was a man inside counting receipts. The lights were warm. I knocked on the door. He did not have to open it. It was past midnight. He had every right to wave me away. He opened the door. He pulled me inside. He gave me a chair. He gave me a cup of coffee. He gave me a sandwich from his own lunch. And then he said the words that changed my life. He said, "Sleep upstairs. Tomorrow we have coffee. Someday when you can remember tonight." Julian Kane paused. His voice broke. "I have been remembering that night for 36 years. He turned. He looked at Elena. "I am here today to remember it out loud." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket, held it, looked at it for a long moment, then walked over to Elena. He handed it to her. "This is the formal documentation," he said quietly, so quietly only she could hear. "The trust is fully transferred. $200 million. Yours to direct. Your father wanted you to have it." She held the envelope. She did not open it. She did not need to. She looked up at Julian Kane. She said so softly, "Thank you." He shook his head. "No," he said. "Thank him." He looked out at the crowd. "All of us, together, right now, thank him." In the parking lot of a small, faded gas station at the corner of a forgotten street in a forgetting city, stood 600 strangers and one daughter, stood up together and clapped, and clapped, and clapped, for a man who had spent 40 years choosing them. 6 months later, the sign came down. It was October, cold for October, the wind moving the leaves on the sidewalk in small, useless circles. A crane lifted the old yellow star up off the roof, carefully, like something fragile, because it was, because every screw of it was 40 years old. The new sign went up that afternoon, black letters on a cream background, simple, plain, Antonio's place. Underneath in smaller letters, gas, coffee, whatever you need. The reopening day was Halloween. The pumps were brand new. The store was renovated. The little cafe in the corner had 4 tables and a glass case full of pastries from a bakery 2 blocks down, whose owner had been one of the people in the photographs on the wall in the basement. Margaret was behind the counter making coffee. Mrs. Halloran was at the door handing out small bags of candy to children. Isabella was at one of the cafe tables doing her homework, her notebook full of careful, precise handwriting. She had announced last month that she was going to be a lawyer. She had said it like it was already decided, because it was. Camilla was at the next table also doing homework, her notebook full of sloppy, slanted writing. She had written an essay last month for school about her grandfather, about a man named Antonio who had given soup to strangers for 30 years. The essay had won an award, a small one, county level, but it had been printed in a newspaper. Her name in print for the first time. She had cried when she saw it. She had told Elena, "I want to be a writer." Elena had said, "You already are." The bell over the door jingled. The lobby filled with people, customers buying coffee, volunteers in matching shirts that said Antonio's Place across the chest in small letters. A young woman who had arrived in the country 11 days ago sitting at the back table with Margaret, learning her first English words. Elena watched from the corner. She held a cup of coffee. She was wearing a sweater she had bought for herself, a nice one, not expensive, just nice. The first thing she had bought herself in 9 years that wasn't on clearance. The door opened again. A small brass plaque had been mounted next to it on the outside that morning. Elena walked over, read it. She had read it 100 times in the last week. She still cried every time. Real wealth is not measured in dollars or property. It is measured in the hearts we have touched. Antonio Martinez, 1956 to 2026. He helped. She put her hand on the plaque. She did not cry this time. She just stood for a long moment. The wind moved her hair. Inside the store, Camilla laughed at something Isabella had said. The laugh came through the door and out into the parking lot and disappeared into the October sky. Elena turned. She watched her daughters through the window. The girls were not looking at her. They were just being 12. 12 and safe. 12 and laughing. 12 and not afraid of anything anyone could say to them anymore. Because their mother had become someone. And because their mother had always been someone. And because they would never again wonder if they were enough. Elena Martinez stood outside the new front door of Antonio's place. She held her coffee. The bell jingled inside. The sun came over the roof. She smiled, and then she went in.